The second verse of the hymn, Brother, Sister, Let Me Serve You, goes like this. We are pilgrims on a journey, fellow travelers on the road. This morning, we heard of those travelers on a pilgrimage from Jerusalem to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles away. There were two broken men with faces downcast, and they're joined by a third. They tell the stranger who comes alongside them what they had been discussing, the collapse of all their hopes, both religious and national, sacred and secular. They speak of Jesus and his death, adding that they had hoped he would be the one to set Israel free. They were upside down with questions, grief, and probably anger at the rank injustice of a good man being brutally killed by the authorities. In times of bereavement, and anger often surfaces. Why did it happen? Who's to blame? And more. There is a place for anger. In Jesus' lifetime, I can hear him crying out in anger, shouting at the scribes and Pharisees for their hypocrisy and failed leadership. You whited sepulchres, he cried. Or later in the early church, from the letter of James. Come now, you rich people, weep and wail for the miseries that are coming upon you. James is crying out against the unjust wages paid to the workers in the field. And where is morality today? There is a place for anger. In our time today, in our global catastrophe, with so many deaths and questions, uncertainty about our future, possibly being shut away from normal communication with friends and families, unable to visit and hug our grandchildren, loss of employment, and so much more. The whole world has been stopped in its tracks. In addition, we can see how the earth has paid a heavy price for our rapacious consumption of everything, from disposable fashion, single-use plastic, too much red meat, to fossil fuel-powered transport and heating. We may feel anger too how our governments have acted. Why did it take our own government so long to act on the news of the coronavirus coming to us? Why did they let our National Health Service fall so far behind in its staff and resources in the so-called austerity years? There is a need for concern for the common people of our land. They say that now is not the time to question their actions, that we are all in it together. But I will shout out that they must be judged by their inactions and deliberate cutbacks of our national resources. If I refrained from paying the mortgage, the parish share, or house insurance, I would be called foolish. I'm reminded of the story of Jesus. He said, the wise man built his house on a rock, and the foolish man built his house on the sand. And what happened when the floods came? Yes, I am angry for the people today who suffer, jobs in danger, and whose friends and family members have died. The whole world is experiencing a grief From grief comes anger. We are pilgrims on a journey. Those pilgrims in this morning's story had their eyes opened by the stranger walking with them. Even in times when God's word is being challenged, the relationship between God and his creation, his rule, though threatened and at times eclipsed, his rule is ultimately sovereign. The stranger, but not a stranger now, as he broke bread with them, they recognized him as their Lord and their God, the risen Christ. Back they rushed over the 7 miles to Jerusalem to share with the others. But there was no going back to how things were before. They were into new places, a life transformed. And where are we today? Our faith is in God, as the psalmist said, who is our refuge and strength, an everlasting help in trouble. That doesn't mean we won't catch the virus or suffer economically, but it means God comes alongside us on our journey with all who are wounded and broken, human and non-human, in compassion and renewal. It doesn't mean we won't be frightened, but it gives us a wider perspective that nothing can separate us from the love of God. We are pilgrims on a journey.